To be or not, line, to be. Memorizing lines can be tough, but I'm going to show you a proven way that's 2,500 years old, and even Shakespeare used it to memorize lines. Check this out. There's actually a very fast and easy way to memorize your lines. It's called the Mind Palace or Method of Loci. It dates back thousands of years, all the way back to 477 BC, and Shakespeare even used this in the Globe Theatre in London when he wanted his actors to memorize their lines. Here's the concept of how this works. In the window in your room right now, I want you to imagine two bumblebees, and they're buzzing in that window, bzzz, and they're carrying a huge question mark. So look at the window and you see two bees flying in and they're carrying a question mark. And on the chair, I want you to imagine a noble person, and they're in wind and they're in snow and the weather is all around them. And now on the wall in your room, I want you to imagine a human brain. And the brain is up there and it's just in pain and it's suffering. A human brain in pain or suffering. And imagine that on your wall. Now let's go back. Flying through the window, you had two bees and they were carrying a question mark. On the chair in your room, you had a noble person, and their wind and snow, weather was all around them. And on the wall, you had a human brain, and it was in pain or it was suffering. So you may be wondering why I had you just do this. Well, you may not know it, but I just took the first few lines of Hamlet's famous soliloquy in the Shakespearean play, To Be or Not to Be, and we turned those into pictures, and we placed those pictures around a room to give us cues to memorize the lines. In the window, we had two bees flying in with a question mark. That reminds us to say, to be or not to be, that is the question. On the chair, we had a noble person surrounded by weather, because the next phrase is, whether 'tis nobler. A noble person in weather to remind us of whether 'tis nobler. And then the next line is, in the mind to suffer. So on the wall, we had a mind and a brain, and it was suffering. It was in pain. So to say all those in a sequence, we would say, to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer. So you may be wondering, how did Shakespeare use this to memorize lines? Well, when he had the Globe Theatre constructed, he actually had this in mind in the architecture. He had 5 doors built, and each one of these doors were different colors. He had 5 columns built, and each one of these columns were different colors. The 5 doors and the 5 columns were locations where his actors would imagine their lines and see them interacting with the columns of the doors on all the different colors, helped too to distinguish the doors and the columns. Not only that, they would use paintings, or they would use the steps coming up to the stage. They would use the exit as other locations to use to memorize their lines. Then they would take whatever they wanted to say and they would create pictures for it, brain triggers, just like the two bees flying in the window. And they would see them on one of the columns, or they would see it on the door, or they would see it on the painting or the exit. And all over their theater, they would have brain triggers to remind them of where their lines were. So if they were ever in the middle of a play and they got stumped for a second and they couldn't remember where they were, they would simply go around the theater in their mind. The cues, the images on the locations would tell them what they needed to say. An important thing to remember is they always went in the same order around the theater, going to each location in the same order. Then, if they wanted to remember to be or not to be, they would put 2 bees mentally on that first column. That is the question. They would imagine a question mark on the next location, which might have been a door. And that's how they would use the Globe Theatre to memorize their lines. You can create your very own mind palace. Stand in the doorway of every single one of your rooms and number 5 pieces of furniture in that room. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go to the next room, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Go to the next room, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Number 5 pieces of furniture in every one of your rooms. Then when you get done, close your eyes and say them forwards and backwards until you know them cold. These locations are going to be your very own mind palace. Then take your lines, turn your lines into pictures, and imagine them around the pieces of furniture in your house. So then when you're up on the stage, you just think back to your house, and the pictures you have imagined on the furniture in your house will tell you what your lines are. I have a short course on how to build your own mind palace. You can get it by clicking the link right here at Memorize My Lines or clicking the link below. It was good enough for Sherlock Holmes, it was good enough for Shakespeare, and it'll work for you. I look forward to hearing about your success. All right, guys, we got lots more videos coming out on how to memorize stuff. You're not going to want to miss this, so click the link right here and subscribe to our channel. You'll be the first to find out about it. Come on, click right here. Click right here, subscribe. Fine, don't subscribe. We'll see you on the next video.